The Arizona sun burned low across the crimson desert, laying long shadows across the mesas. The wind carried the scent of dust, sage, and heat, humming softly through the canyon. Tala moved carefully along the ridge, her bare feet whispering over the sand. She was young, maybe 17, with braided black hair and skin sun-warmed from desert life. Her hands held a small bundle of herbs for the village healer. Her people depended on her. She'd walked miles to gather the rare white sage that grew only on this cliffside, where the rocks turned red as blood when the sun dropped. A hawk screeched overhead, circling wide and slow. Tala paused, glancing up, sensing something in the air, a shift. The desert had ways of warning its children. She turned to head back, clutching the bundle close to her chest. The ground beneath her feet felt uneasy, as if even the earth wanted her gone. Then, suddenly, she heard a footstep, a weight behind her, too close. Before she could turn, a shove hit her square between the shoulders. The world fell out from under her. Her scream vanished into the canyon wind. Rocks tore her arms. The herbs scattered like dying feathers. She hit the slope hard, once, twice, and then came the sharp, unmistakable crack. Pain like lightning ripped through her leg, white-hot, paralyzing. For a few long seconds, she couldn't even breathe. Dust rose around her in golden plumes, the air thick with silence. The ridge above blurred in the sunlight, the face of whoever pushed her hidden behind the glare. Tala tried to move. The moment she did, her leg screamed back. The bone had snapped clean, swollen beneath the skin. Tears streaked through the dust on her face as she crawled toward the shadow of a rock. The sun was dropping fast, soon the desert would turn cold. She pressed her forehead into the sand, trembling, whispering a prayer in Apache to the mountain spirits. Hours crawled by. Coyotes began their lonely howls. Every sound seemed closer. Her eyes grew heavy, her body weak from pain. Then, hoofbeats. They came slow at first, echoing softly through the canyon. She blinked through the blur. A rider approached from the west, his outline golden in the fading light. A man on horseback, broad shoulders, dusty coat, rifle slung low. He wasn't one of hers. He wore the hat of a cowboy. The horse slowed as it neared, snorting and pawing the sand. The man dismounted, boots crunching softly. "Hey there," his voice low, cautious. "You alive?" Tala tried to move, but her breath hitched. The pain was unbearable. Luke Harding knelt beside her, removing his hat. He saw the blood, the twisted leg, the raw skin across her arms. She looked half dead. Her eyes flickered open, deep brown, shimmering with pain and defiance. He saw the beads in her hair, the tribal markings faint on her wrist. "Apache," he murmured under his breath. He'd seen enough raids, enough blood, to know most white men would have ridden past. But Luke wasn't most men. Something in her eyes held him there. He tore a strip from his shirt and tied it around her leg just above the break, hands moving steady though his heart pounded. She flinched when he touched her, her fingers clutching the sand. "Easy now," he whispered. "I ain't here to hurt you." His voice was rough but kind, carrying the weight of someone who'd seen too much. She muttered something in Apache, words he didn't understand, but the sound of them was soft, pleading. He caught the tremor in her breath and understood enough. "Help me." He leaned back, scanning the ridge. No movement, just wind. But something felt wrong. Whoever had pushed her wasn't gone for good. Luke poured a little water from his canteen into her mouth. She swallowed greedily, coughing, then tried to speak again. "Who did this to you?" he asked, wiping dust from her cheek. She only shook her head weakly. The desert light was fading fast, gold bleeding into violet. The temperature dropped with it. He looked at her leg again, already swelling bad. She wouldn't survive the night here. He made his decision. He lifted her gently, one arm under her knees, the other supporting her shoulders. She gasped in pain, gripping his shirt. "Sorry, girl," he murmured, "but you're coming with me." He carried her to his horse, a strong bay mare named Whiskey, and carefully laid her across the saddle. Then he mounted behind, holding her steady as the horse began to move. She leaned against him, half conscious, her breath shallow but warm against his chest. He glanced back once at the ridge. For just a heartbeat, he thought he saw movement, someone watching from above. By the time Luke reached his camp near the creek, the stars were out, scattered like cold fire across the black sky. The campfire was small, hidden under low mesquite branches. He dismounted carefully and set her down on his bedroll near the flames. Her eyes fluttered open again, wide and frightened. "You're safe," he said, kneeling beside her. "You hear me? You're safe now." She didn't answer, only turned her face from the light. He poured water into a tin cup and pressed it to her lips again. "Drink," he said softly. She obeyed. Her leg was in bad shape. He'd seen cattle breaks before, this was worse. He'd have to splint it by morning. She'd need real care soon, maybe someone from her tribe, maybe a doctor from town. But right now, all he could do was keep her alive till dawn. He fed the fire with a few dry branches and pulled his coat over her shoulders. She shivered, whispering something faint, her voice trembling like wind through dry grass. Luke leaned back, watching the flames flicker. He hadn't planned on finding anyone out here tonight. He'd come looking for a stray calf, nothing more. But now, sitting across from this wounded girl in the middle of nowhere, he felt the weight of something bigger, something pulling him toward her fate whether he wanted it or not. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the memory of his own sister, gone too soon. Or maybe it was just the desert's way of binding strangers together under the same ruthless sky. The fire crackled softly. Crickets sang. In the silence between the sounds, Luke caught the faintest noise, like a boot scraping stone. He froze. Reaching for his revolver, he turned toward the darkness beyond the camp. Nothing. Just the whisper of the river. Still, he didn't like it. He set the gun down within reach and added another stick to the flames. The warmth spread, chasing off the chill, but the feeling of being watched lingered. Tala stirred in her sleep, whimpering softly. He moved closer, checking the bandage on her leg. The swelling was worse now. She needed rest, not fear. He spoke gently, mostly to himself. "You'll be all right, girl. I ain't letting you die out here." Her breathing slowed. The moonlight touched her face, softening the lines of pain. For the first time, he saw not an Apache, not an enemy, but just a girl, hurt, alone, and betrayed by someone she trusted. The night stretched long. Luke didn't sleep. He sat there, back against his saddle, eyes on the ridge beyond the firelight. The desert wind hissed through the dry grass, whispering secrets. Sometimes, he thought he heard the faint clink of metal, a spur, a buckle, but every time he looked, there was nothing but shadow. He wondered who she was running from. Someone from her tribe, a bounty hunter, a settler's revenge. Questions burned in his mind with no answers. Near dawn, Tala stirred again. Her eyes opened, catching the flicker of firelight. She looked at him for a long time before speaking. "Why? Help me," she asked softly, her English broken but clear enough. Luke shrugged, rubbing a hand over his stubble. "Because you're alive. That's reason enough." She watched him carefully, searching for something in his face, then closed her eyes again. A faint smile touched her lips before sleep took her back. The first light of morning spread across the desert like spilled gold. Luke rose and saddled his horse. He'd planned to head east to Fort Bowie by noon, but plans change. He couldn't just leave her. When he turned, she was awake again, pain still sharp in her eyes. He crouched beside her. "We'll move slow," he said. "There's a doctor a few miles north, he'll help." She nodded, trusting him now, even though her voice failed her. He helped her drink, tightened the bandage, then packed what little food he had. As he worked, he caught sight of the ridge again, the one she'd fallen from. Even from here, it looked dangerous, jagged and cruel. But near the top, just for an instant, he thought he saw a glint, like sunlight flashing off metal. He froze. Rifle scope, maybe. Or binoculars. Someone was watching them. He cursed under his breath and hurried to his horse. "We ride now," he said, lifting her carefully. She winced but didn't argue. As they rode into the rising sun, Luke's eyes stayed sharp, his hand never far from his gun. Somewhere behind them, high on that same ridge, a figure stood motionless, cloak billowing in the wind. Whoever had shoved her once was still out there, and not finished yet. The gunshot shattered the calm of the desert night. Luke's instincts flared before thought could form. He lunged across the fire, pushing Tala down, his revolver snapping from its holster in one smooth motion. Another shot cracked, and sparks burst from the campfire like fireflies scattering in panic. "Stay low," he barked. She covered her ears, trembling, her breath ragged. Bullets tore through the canvas of his small tent, leaving holes that glowed orange with firelight. Whoever was out there knew exactly where to aim, and they were close. Too close. Luke rolled to one side, landing behind his saddle for cover. The air stank of gunpowder and sand. His mind raced. Only a handful of men rode this far into Apache country at night. Whoever wanted the girl dead wasn't just desperate, they were paid. He steadied his breath, eyes narrowing into the dark. He fired once, twice, quick, sharp shots into the brush. Silence. Then, faintly, the sound of retreating hooves echoed beyond the creek bed. He waited another minute before lowering his gun. The night held its breath. The wind whispered across the stones again, soft and hollow. He turned back to Tala, who was clutching the blanket-like armor, eyes wide. "You all right?" he asked quietly. She nodded, but her hands shook. Luke holstered his gun, jaw tight. "They know where we are now. We'll have to move before sunrise." She looked at him, fear shadowing her face. "They come again?" she asked. "They might," he said. "But not if I find him first." He kicked out the fire, scattering embers into the sand, then packed fast, canteen, saddlebag, rifle. The desert seemed to hum with danger, every sound sharper than before. When he helped Tala onto the horse, she winced from pain but said nothing. Her eyes were fixed on the dark horizon, where the ridge loomed like a ghost. As they rode, Luke's mind churned. A red handprint on her shoulder. A fall that wasn't a fall. Someone wanted the chief's daughter erased from the map, and he'd just stepped in the middle of it. They rode through the long night, following the moonlit river trail until the first streaks of dawn bled into the east. The air was cold enough to sting. Luke glanced back often, scanning for movement. Twice he thought he saw dust rising on the horizon, but it faded with the wind. Tala leaned against him, her breath shallow. "You need rest," he said softly. She shook her head. "No, stop. They find." He tightened his grip on the reins. "You're right. But if we keep pushing, your leg'll give out before they do." By the time the sun climbed high, the horse's flanks were lathered in sweat. Luke finally spotted what he'd been looking for, a narrow canyon cutting through the cliffs, half hidden by scrub. "Here," he muttered, guiding the horse in. Inside, the walls rose high and tight, shadowed from the sun. He dismounted and helped her down carefully, setting her against a cool rock. "We'll hide out till dark." He poured water into his hat, offering it. She drank slowly, her lips cracked and dry. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded once. "Don't thank me yet." He crouched near the canyon mouth, scanning the ridge above. Nothing moved. Still, the feeling of eyes watching never left. He pulled a small map from his saddlebag, tracing a path with his finger. The nearest town, Red Bluff, was still 30 miles north. Too far to risk in daylight. He'd have to circle west toward the old Harding Ranch ruins by sundown. Nobody went there anymore. Nobody but him. "You're gonna be safe," he muttered, mostly to himself. Tala watched him, studying the lines of his face as if searching for truth beneath the grit and scars. After a long silence, she spoke. "You, soldier." Luke's eyes lifted. He said simply. "Union scout, years back." She hesitated, then asked, "Why you help me?" He didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted to the horizon where the sun burned white. "Once knew someone who needed help. I didn't get there in time." His voice cracked a little, but he masked it with a shrug. "Guess I've been trying to fix that ever since." Tala's lips parted, but she said nothing. Her eyes softened, understanding the ache that rode with him. Hours passed. The desert baked the canyon walls, filling the air with dry heat and stillness. Luke kept watch, rifle balanced on his knee. At midday, the quiet broke, a distant sound of hoofbeats again. Faint but steady. His spine stiffened. He motioned for Tala to stay down and crawled toward the canyon edge. Peering out, he saw two riders cutting across the plain, one in a long duster, the other leading a spare horse. Dust trails behind them glowed in the sun. They weren't Apache. They rode like bounty men, straight-backed, slow, sure. Luke slid back into the shade. "We've got company," he said. Tala's eyes widened. "They find us." He nodded. "Yeah, and they're not here to talk." He grabbed his saddlebag and pulled out a small pouch of bullets. "Can you walk?" She shook her head. "Then we'll make him come to us." He placed her behind a boulder near the back wall, then took position near the entrance, rifle steady. The riders' voices grew clearer. "You sure this is where she went?" One called. "Tracks don't lie," the other answered. "Cowboy's horse too. Dumb fool thinks he can hide in a crack." Luke waited. Patience was a soldier's best weapon. When the first shadow crossed the canyon mouth, he fired. The shot echoed like thunder, and the lead rider dropped his reins, cursing. The second ducked, returning fire blindly. Bullets sparked off the stone. Tala covered her ears, whispering a prayer. Luke moved fast, switching cover, his rifle cracking again. One man screamed, a hit, but not fatal. Then came silence. Dust floated in the air, glowing gold through the light. Luke's heartbeat thundered in his chest. "You boys picked the wrong canyon," he called out. "Cowboy." A voice rasped back. "This ain't your fight." Luke smirked. "It is now." Another round of gunfire tore through the air. One bullet grazed his shoulder, burning hot. He gritted his teeth and fired back, hitting the second man square in the leg. A cry rang out. Silence followed again, heavier this time. When he peeked over the rock, both men were gone, one crawling, one limping toward the open plain. Luke didn't chase. The desert would take care of them. He turned back to Tala, breathing hard. "You hurt?" he asked. She shook her head. Just a scratch," he muttered, though blood trickled down his arm. She reached for his hand, hesitating. "They come again." Luke glanced toward the sun. "Not these two. But whoever sent him, yeah. They'll send more." He reloaded quietly, the click of metal echoing off stone. "We move again tonight." She looked up at him, eyes dark and steady. "You not afraid?" He smiled faintly. "Fear keeps you alive, but I don't let it drive." She studied him a long moment, then nodded. "My father, he is chief. He not know I gone." Luke's brow furrowed. "Then he sure as hell will by now." Night fell slow over the canyon, shadows stretching long and deep. Luke built a small fire, just enough for warmth. Tala lay wrapped in his coat, watching the flames dance. The stars glittered cold above, the desert silent again as if holding its breath. "They want you dead," Luke said quietly. "Why?" She hesitated. "My father, make peace with white men. Some in tribe say he weak. They want fight." Her voice shook. "They push me, so he think white men kill me. Then war again." Luke's eyes hardened. "So it's politics." She nodded. "Blood for lies." He stared into the fire, jaw clenched. "War don't need help finding reasons." His mind replayed the war years, the burning camps, the cries, the smell of death. He'd seen what hatred did to men. And now it was reaching for her. He looked at her again, this girl caught between two worlds. "You can't go back alone," he said. "They'll try again." She met his gaze. "Then you come." He hesitated, torn between his past and his conscience. "If I do," he said finally, "there's no going back for either of us." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and dust. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote cried, long and low. Tala closed her eyes, whispering something in Apache, a prayer, maybe. Luke rose, scanning the horizon one last time. In the distance, he saw faint campfire lights flickering across the plain, too many for coincidence. "They're regrouping," he murmured. He checked his gun, his eyes cold now. The fire crackled behind him, painting his face in golden shadow. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Tala stirred, sensing his resolve. "You go?" she asked softly. Luke nodded. "Gotta buy us some time." She caught his hand before he turned. "You come back." He looked down at her, the faintest smile curving his lips. "I always come back." She held his gaze a moment longer, then released him. He slipped into the darkness beyond the canyon, moving silent as shadow. The desert swallowed him whole. Behind him, the firelight flickered over the red walls, and Tala whispered his name into the night, half prayer, half promise.